Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Amarjit Singh from Himachal Pradesh University, Shimla. Today we are going to discuss about a module elastic scattering of X-rays with matter from paper solid state physics. So students, let us see what we are going to learn in this module. So first we are going to define crystalline materials in a different way, like in terms of lattice planes and how to identify these lattice planes. That is all about Miller indices. We will talk about Miller indices, and now we will talk about, after that we shall talk about Bragg diffraction and its associated geometry of the Bragg diffraction. And next we shall talk how to index an X-ray diffraction pattern. So in X-ray diffraction pattern we obtain several peaks, let us say, or signals of crystallinity. So how we are going to index them so that we understand that which planes they belong. And there is a relation between this Miller indices and lattice constants. So these are the things which we are going to discuss. So let me have a brief introduction to you what we are going to do. So basically, now when we understand that solids which are made of atoms and molecules, and they are arranged in a regular pattern. So how do we know they are arranged in a regular pattern? Because it is such a small dimension which is of the order of angstrom. So at the time the real challenge was to measure that distance, but the discovery of X-ray provided us a hope, because the wavelength of X-ray is of the order of angstrom. So if we have an X-ray impinging on materials, and if these atoms are arranged in an ordered fashion, so there will be definitely some sort of a constructive and destructive parents. From there we can identify separation between atoms. So that was a theoretical understanding. So first of all, let us talk about a solid which is made of repetition of a unit cell or regular arrangement of atoms. Now in this chapter we will define this in a slightly different way. So instead of unit cell, here we are talking about a family of planes. So in a unit cell, as you can see, there are 6 faces. So these are 6 planes, or you can say there are 3 family of planes, because 2 of them are parallel to each other. So when these planes are parallel to each other, this is one family. So here we have slightly changed the nomenclature and we will talk in terms of planes. Lattice planes and Miller indices. Materials are made of atoms. Knowledge of how atoms are arranged into crystal structure is the foundation on which we build our understanding of structure and properties of materials. We already have an idea of a unit cell, and as you can see here in this diagram, there are 3 diagrams shown here, where this unit cell is one corner of this unit cell is coinciding with the origin, and you can see this shaded portions. So these shaded areas are designated as planes, and there are different type of planes. As you can see, you can make these planes in a different way. Idea is that now we are looking at solid as a set of planes, as a family of planes. So we can define solid in terms of family of planes. So this is another way of defining the solids. So now we see this slide where these planes are shown more elaborately. Now you can see that these unit cells, one of the corner is coinciding with the origin, and there are shaded planes. We are calling this to be 011 plane with respect to the origin, and also this entire family of plane is 011. So what is the 011? we will discuss in the course of next slides. This is what is called Miller indices. So there is a way of indexing the plane that we will discuss in coming slides. Now on the right figure you can see that there is another family of planes which is indexed as 110. So this way we can give a particular plane a name, a family of plane a name, and that helps us to identify that particular family of planes. Okay, so let us say how to define this planes, or how to give it a nomenclature which we usually represent by the symbol HKL. So we were discussing about the planes. So these planes can be given some sort of index to identify them. So the idea is that you take a cube and or a unit cell, say of a particular geometry, and place one corner at the origin. So you will see that some of the planes are intersecting the origin also, and there is another plane parallel to this plane which is not at the intersection of origin, but it is intersecting some x-axis or maybe y-axis or both or three. So it can intersect, and also it may not intersect. Some planes may be parallel to some axis. Let us say one plane will be parallel to x-axis, some plane can be parallel to y-axis, and so on. So when they intersect, they intersect at a distance of lattice constant, and when they are parallel to some axis, we understand that they will be meeting at the infinity. So idea is that now you inverse it, like if the intersection at the x-axis is at a, so it becomes 1 upon a, and if the intersection at b-axis is b, it becomes 1 of b, and if it is parallel to z-axis, the intersection is at infinity, so 1 upon infinity is equal to 0. Now you multiply with the respective lattice constants to this number. For example, 1 upon a should be multiplied by a, so you get 1 there. 1 upon b multiplied by b, so you get 1 there, and if you multiply anything with 0 last index, that is 0. So basically that is a plane 1 1 0. So that is how you construct the Miller indices. Finally, the integer indices can be written in a bracket HKL. So in this order, H here corresponds to the intersected x-axis, K to y-axis, and L at z-axis. We see this is another example to show 1 1 1 plane. So here 1 1 1 plane means you can see that these planes are oblique. This is intersecting all three axes, x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. So when this is intersecting all three axes at a equal distance, so this is some sort of another family of plane which we call 1 1 1, and the rules we have already discussed, that how we intersect and how we bring this number 1 1 1. So we will clarify it. This is now another example of how we index a plane which is on the negative side of origin. So in the left hand side you see a figure, it's a cube, one of the corner is coinciding at O, and there is an indication of minus y direction and y direction. And then again on the right hand side we have seen a plane which is intersecting y-axis and z-axis, but this is parallel to x-axis. It is nowhere intersecting x-axis. So naturally when this plane is parallel to x-axis, its corresponding Miller index will be 0, and there is a 1 bar over here and z 1. So 1 bar here means that it is on the negative side of origin. It is intersecting y-axis on the negative side, whereas z-axis it is intersecting on the positive side. So the way is, the nomenclature of this plane is 0 1 bar 1. So this slide shows electromagnetic spectrum, and X-ray is part of this electromagnetic spectrum. So this spectrum shows the variation of wavelength from higher to lower, and the frequencies from lower to higher as we go from left to right, and vice versa, and also for the energy. So here the idea of showing this spectrum is important because we are going to employ X-ray as a tool to determine the structure of a solid. So important thing is why X-ray. You can see that the wavelength of X-ray is of the order of 1 angstrom, or somewhere between 1 and 2 angstrom. So the idea is that we have to match this wavelength with the interatomic spacings, because diffraction phenomena occurs when you have a wavelength of the order of obstacles you are using, just like as in a visible light. And in diffraction grating, the spacing between two slits is of the order of 1 micron or slightly less, so it is on the order of visible wavelength. So that is the idea, that the which wavelength should be perfect for determining the spacing between solids has to be of the same order. Superposition of wave. Here I just give you an idea of how X-ray scattering works to determine the structure. So this is simple understanding of giving us that how two waves can superpose after scattering and give us a resultant amplitude. Now you can see that wave 1 on top and wave 2 below, these are two incident waves having the same wavelength lambda, and they are phase coherent. Phase coherent means when you have a crest of wave 1, at the same time the crest of wave 2 also occurs. In case of wave 1, when there is a trough, at the same time there is a trough occurs below. So this is in complete coherence, and then it is in break between shows an scattering event. After a scattering has taken place, now if the wave remains or in the same phase means you can see that their crest and crest position matches, so trough and trough position matches, and the resultant is the summation of amplitude. So these two amplitudes are summed up in this way if they are in a phase. So this is shown that how a superposition of two waves in a phase could give you a higher amplitude wave. So in this slide we show you the other case. In the earlier slide you have seen this constructive interference where amplitudes were summing up. In this slide you can see that before scattering event these two waves are perfectly coherent, they have the same wavelength, and after the scattering event you can see that they are out of phase, 180-degree out of phase. When top wave is having a trough, the lower one is having a crest, and vice versa. And if you sum them up, so what you get is a zero intensity throughout. So if the waves interfere in this fashion, there is a destructive interference. Why we are discussing this is that in X-ray diffraction phenomena, this constructive and destructive interference plays a role in generating the diffraction pattern that we shall discuss in next slides. Bragg diffraction. So as we discussed earlier, we have talked earlier that a solid can be seen as a set of planes, as a family of planes, and the spacing between the planes should be of the order of the wavelength of the probing radiation. So this Sir William Henry Bragg knew this, and they were trying to find out that a solid which is a collection of so many planes, would it give some diffraction result. So the difference between diffraction and interference we just talked about is this, that for interference we are just talking about two wavelets and the interference between two waves, but the diffraction phenomena, such constructive and destructive interference takes place from several hundreds of planes, and that constructive interference or destructive has to be contributed by these hundreds of planes. So here in this diagram, for simplicity, it is just shown that this it takes place from the two planes. So the formula for this famous formula for this diffraction is this Bragg diffraction, which is 2d sine theta and lambda. Here d is the interplanar spacing and theta is the angle as shown in the diagram. Lambda is the wavelength of the probing radiation and n is order of diffraction. So usually we deal with the first order of diffraction, so n is equal to 1. Higher order of diffractions are usually weak, so we don't deal with that in the experiment, and n is usually 1 in this experiment. Now here you see this D100 is shown. So 100 means we are talking about some family of planes. So that family of planes has a particular distance, particular separation between the planes, which is defined in the formula below, that if A0 is the lattice constant of the cubic crystal, then their Miller indices HKL will have that relation which is shown in this slide, and you can find out the d spacing from here. So from X-ray diffraction experiment we measure sine theta, lambda wavelength is already known to us, so we can calculate d from there, and that way we can find out the lattice spacing, and if we know the lattice spacing we can index HKL, we can identify the peaks which plane they belong to. We shall talk about that in next slides. So you see, as we discussed in the last slide, that how to index these peaks, which class or family these peaks belongs to. So this is the formula where it is given that theta HKL. So in any diffraction experiment, this theta is measured, and we know, as you can see, that intensity versus 2 theta is plotted here. And you can see that this lattice constant, we know which material we are using, and this is an example of simple cubic type. Wavelength we know. So this HKL, as we know that these are integers, so we put these values starting from, let us say, 001 or 100, from somewhere we start from the lowest value, and then we can see that if this equation is satisfied, then that means we have understood which family of plane that peak belongs to. For example, let us take this first peak 111. So if in the formula above we put here 111 instead of HKL and put the value of A naught, then this equation is satisfied. Similarly, we have found that the next peak is 200. You can see that you can fill something like 112, and then it will not satisfy. This equation will not be satisfied because no peak exists between 111 and 220. So basically we find out that which family of planes are existing and these peaks belongs to, and this is also an interesting noting that not all family of planes are present in this diffraction diagrams. Some peaks are not present which should have been corresponding to that family. So why it is not, that we shall discuss later in the structure factor, but that is the way to indexing any particular X-ray diffraction. You see, this is another diffraction pattern of a different material, and here you see that the first peak is 111 and the next is 200 and then 220. So you saw that in earlier diffraction 200 peak was not there, but in this particular X-ray diffraction this peak exists, and there are several peaks which exist in this diagram, not earlier one, and also vice versa. So that is a part of a structure. It tells us that the structure of this earlier X-ray diffractogram and this one are different. We shall talk about that in more detail in a structure factor. So this slide shows here you the geometry of the experiment. So in earlier diffraction pattern you see that we are plotting the intensity versus 2 theta. So we want to clarify what is theta and what is 2 theta. You can see here the sample is placed horizontally, and from the X-ray source an X-ray is impinged with an angle theta, it is incident with an angle theta, and with the plane of sample again it is scattered with the angle theta where detector is placed. So basically how much is the deviation? If you extend this incident X-ray beyond the sample, so you will see the angle between this ray and which is going to detector is twice the theta as shown in the diagram. So basically the deviation of wave is twice of theta. So that is what is measured, intensity versus twice theta in a diffraction experiment. Now here you can also see that there is a k0 and k. So these are incident wave vector and scattered wave vector, and there is a q in perpendicular direction. So this q is a change in wave vector. So this is k minus k naught. So how much a wave vector transfer has taken place at a particular angle theta. So this is what it tells. And scattering plane, what you call a scattering plane is which contains this vector k naught, k and q, and also origin. So that particular plane is called scattering plane. So here in the slide you see a table, and in this table you see that there is written as crystal system, and that is constants, and then 1 upon d square. So these are interplanetary spacing. So this slide tells you what is the relation between d, the interplanetary spacing, and HKL, the Miller indices, and the lattice constants a, b, c. Like you can see here in cubic symmetry, a is equal to b is equal to c, and all angles are 90 degree. So that makes the simple relation between a, d and HKL. In tetragonal structure you can see that two axes are equal and third is different, but all angles are 90 degree. So here the relation is slightly different because now two sides are same, a and a. So h and k have the same side as a, and L have the different length of this unit vector, which is c. So you can note the slight difference in that. And you can see the similarly this orthorhombic structure where all a, b, c are different, but all angles are 90 degree, and you can see that h square upon a square plus k square upon b square plus l square upon c square. So depending on the unit cell, the unit length of lattice, because all three sides are different. Now there is not a single unit lattice constant here. So lattice constant now depend on the direction. On x-axis it is a, on y-axis it is b, on z-axis it is c. And similarly for hexagonal structure you can see this formula: tetragonal, rhombohedral, monolithic and triclinic. So these formulas are given in this table, and you can see that triclinic there is no such formula. In fact you can derive this. This is a kind of exercise, you can do it yourself. And this alpha, beta and gamma are different angles between the different axes. So when we know this relation, the idea of showing this table is that when we know the relation between d, HKL and these angles, it helps us to index the planes. Once we have a diffraction diagram, a diffraction pattern which we have recorded using diffractometer in front of us, and we know which crystal symmetry it belongs to, and we know the lattice constants, then we can index these peaks. Whatever peaks we get in the diffraction pattern, that we can index using this formula. So that is the idea of showing this table. So students, let us summarize what we have learned in this module. So one important use of X-ray powder diffraction is for identifying unknown crystals in a sample. The idea is to match the position and the intensities of the peak in observed diffraction pattern to a known pattern of peaks from the standard sample or from a calculation. And when that match happens, we say, okay, this is a particular structure. There should be a one-to-one correspondence between the observed peaks and the indexed peaks in the candidate diffraction pattern. For a simple diffraction pattern, uh, this tentative indexing still needs to be cross-checked. To do this, the theta angle of the diffraction peaks are obtained and used to obtain the interplanar spacing for each diffraction peak. So when there are diffraction peaks you see, and corresponding to each diffraction peak there is a corresponding interplanar spacing. For example, for cubic crystals it is then possible to convert each interplanar spacing into a lattice parameter. Indexing is consistent if all peaks provide the same lattice parameters. You have different peaks, and from the different peaks if you get the same lattice parameter, so that means your indexing is consistent. And non-cubic crystals, they require some algorithm and some iterative refinement using some computer programs and angles. So for non-cubic crystal it's a bit of complicated. Thank you.